Welcome to the Restricted Handling Podcast. This is what's been going on in China in the past 24 hours. First, the nuclear story. Earlier, we talked about the allegation that China conducted a covert nuclear explosive test back on June 22, 2020, at Lop Nur in Xinjiang. Now we've got more detail from the U.S. side. Assistant Secretary of State Christopher Yeaw went public this week and said a seismic station in Kazakhstan, PS-23, detected a magnitude 2.75 to 2.76 event roughly 450 miles from the test site. According to him, this wasn't an earthquake and it wasn't mining. He described it as a singular explosion and said the signature matches what you'd expect from a nuclear explosive test. He also added something we didn't have before, the allegation that China used decoupling techniques, detonating inside a large underground cavity to muffle the seismic waves and throw off detection systems. Think of it as acoustic stealth for nuclear testing. That's a serious charge. The international monitoring body, the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization, confirmed 2 small seismic events 12 seconds apart on that date, but said the data alone isn't enough to determine the cause. So we've got Washington leaning forward with confidence, the CTBTO hedging, and Beijing flatly denying. China's embassy called the allegation entirely unfounded. Moscow chimed in the next day, with Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov saying neither Russia nor China has conducted secret nuclear tests. Which, let's be honest, is a familiar script if you followed Moscow since the Soviet days. Calm denial, straight face, move along. But here's the strategic backdrop. New START expired on February 5th. That was the last remaining U.S.-Russia Strategic Arms Control Treaty. President Trump has said he wants a new agreement that includes China. He's also said that if others are testing, the U.S. will resume testing on an equal basis. That's not small talk. The U.S. hasn't conducted an explosive nuclear test since 1992. China is assessed to have more than 600 operational warheads and could exceed 1,000 by 2030. Russia sits around 4,300, the U.S. roughly 3,700. So when you hear equal basis, that's not rhetorical fluff. That's potentially the end of a 30-year testing taboo. Now let's pivot from underground to open water. You heard earlier about PLA naval and air activity around Taiwan and the South China Sea. Here's the update. Over the weekend, the PLA Southern Theater Command conducted what it called combat readiness patrols in the South China Sea, timed alongside the 14th Multilateral Maritime Cooperative Activity involving the U.S., the Philippines, and Australia near Scarborough Shoal. 2 Chinese warships showed up and shadowed the exercise. They didn't enter the designated operational box, they didn't issue radio challenges, they just watched. That's classic gray zone signaling, presence without escalation. The maritime version of standing courtside and staring. On the Allied side, you had USS Dewey, Australia's HMAS Toowoomba, Philippine Navy frigate BRP Diego Silang, and the Philippine Coast Guard vessel BRP Teresa Magbanua. P-8A Poseidon aircraft overhead. Replenishment at sea drills, maritime domain awareness, coordinated patrols. Not dramatic, but strategically important. And this is where things tighten. The U.S. has confirmed plans to deploy additional advanced missile systems and unmanned platforms to the Philippines. We already saw the Army's Typhon system in northern Luzon and Marine Corps NMESIS anti-ship launchers deployed near Taiwan. Now more is coming. That's not subtle. Typhon has the range to hold mainland targets at risk. NMESIS complicates Chinese naval operations in both the South China Sea and a Taiwan scenario. Beijing sees this as encirclement. Manila sees it as deterrence. Washington calls it alliance commitment. Speaking of Taiwan, there's another update. President Trump said aboard Air Force One that he has discussed future Taiwan arms sales directly with Xi Jinping. He said they had a good conversation and that a decision is coming soon. This follows reporting that a new package could exceed the $11 billion deal approved in December, potentially including Patriot systems and NASAMS air defenses. Now, subtle but important point. One of the Reagan-era 6 assurances to Taiwan is that the U.S. would not consult Beijing in advance on arms sales. This is the first time a U.S. president has publicly acknowledged discussing the issue with a Chinese leader. We don't know the depth of that conversation, but diplomatically, that's new territory. Xi has directed the PLA to develop capability to move against Taiwan by 2027. U.S. officials have repeatedly said that doesn't mean an invasion is scheduled for that year, but capability deadlines are real. And when you combine sustained PLA naval tempo, missile deployments in the Philippines, and presidential-level arms discussions, you're looking at a very crowded chessboard. Now, inside China's military, the purge story continues, and this builds on what we covered previously. Since 2023, nearly the entire rocket force leadership has been investigated or removed. Central Military Commission Vice Chairman Zhang Yuxia and Joint Staff Chief Liu Zhenli are under investigation. Admiral Yuan Huaji has been absent from public view and reportedly replaced in an acting capacity. Xi addressed the Central Commission for Discipline Inspection in January, emphasizing zero tolerance for corruption. The Pentagon's December China Military Power Report assessed that despite leadership churn, the PLA continues progressing toward its 2027 objectives. So here's the paradox. Generals are falling, investigations are widening, but modernization isn't stalling. It's almost surgical. Cut out the hidden cancer, as party editorials put it, and keep building. Now zoom out to Europe. Greek authorities have detained a 54-year-old Hellenic Air Force wing commander on charges of espionage on behalf of China. He allegedly had access to classified information, including movements of Greek, U.S., and NATO aircraft, including MQ-9 Reaper operations from Larissa Air Base. Under a new Greek law enacted in January 2026, individuals convicted of transmitting military secrets can be stripped of citizenship. That's not a minor administrative penalty. That's effectively being rendered stateless. European intelligence services have been warning about Chinese espionage networks for years. This case just put a face and a uniform on it. And finally, the information battlefield. ByteDance rolled out a generative video model called CDance 2.0. It can produce hyper-realistic video from simple text prompts. We're talking cinematic-level footage without actors or cameras. Analysts are warning that this could flood social media with convincing synthetic political content. Fake speeches, fake scandals, fake last-minute leaks. If the last decade was about bots and troll farms, this next phase could be about manufactured reality. Not persuasion, erosion. When you can't trust your eyes, the whole information ecosystem gets shaky. So today's board looks like this. Nuclear testing allegations resurfacing with more technical detail, arms control guardrails gone, missile deployments expanding in the Philippines, Taiwan arms conversations happening directly between Trump and Xi, PLA leadership purges continuing without visible slowdown in capability development, a European espionage case with teeth, and AI tools that can bend perception at scale. Thanks for listening and being part of the RH community. Please take a moment to leave a 5-star review. If you want to see some changes, email us at info@restrictedhandling.com. We also publish a daily written intel brief on Substack, where you'll find even deeper coverage of Russia and China, along with insights on Iran, the Middle East, and the DPRK.